welcome everyone to yet another recording of the Africa Tech Authors and Speakers Forum. The forum is designed specifically for aspiring speakers and writers on the African continent. We need a lot more representation of local voices, talking about local problems. And I'm very privileged today to have one of my good friends, Greg Serandos, sharing with us some of his learnings in this space. He is the co-founder of the African Academy for Artificial Intelligence. He is also, amongst many other things, a lecturer at the Gordon Institute of Business Science, or GIBS Business School. We've collaborated on a number of forums. I've seen him speak in action. He might not like me saying this, but he's really, really good. And I think we can learn a lot from him. Greg, welcome, and maybe just kick us off with a little bit of background about yourself, also coming to South Africa from Silicon Valley. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's good to be here, Johan. Thank you for inviting me. So I've been in South Africa on and on for more than 20 years. I came over here as part of Big Telco, and I've been back and forth ever since. So this particular tour of duty has been just over 8 years. And I've been really excited about the developments in the AI space in this country. I think it holds a lot of potential to improve the lives of large amounts of people, but it doesn't come without risk. So the advantages, for example, of AI in the African context or the South African context could be around, but we need to actually skill up more people for the future jobs. And in Europe and in Asia, all of Asia except for the Philippines are in demographic collapse. So they need higher productive employees to earn more money, make more taxes to support the retirees that are coming quick and fast. So that's a little bit about me and what we're trying to do.
Fantastic. And you love our country despite all its nonsense, and you're a proud father as well. It's lovely to have a coffee with you every time we meet.
Yes, I'm a proud father of an African American child. She was born here, she's raised here, she's very South African, so that's where we are. Yes, I do like it here.
Yeah,
I've learned to like it here. It's really, really an amazing place.
Yeah, I think if one focuses on the positives, it's a great place to live, and without having to be an ostrich with your head in the sand. So Greg, obviously, you're writing. You're speaking. We can touch on both, but I do want to focus on the speaking of this conversation. Just some of the talks you've done. I know it's conferences. I know it's the lecturing at GIBS. It's online. So just a bit of your the work that you're doing in spreading the message to spread.
Yeah, the business schools are an important part of what we do. It's not the only thing that we do, but delivering messages to leaders and future leaders at business schools such as GIBS, such as Henley Business Schools, and soon one of the coastal universities as well, and into the African universities is an important part of what we do. But it's not, like I said, it's not the only thing. We've spoken about 40 conferences last year, mostly industry conferences around global business services and contact centers and customer experience and marketing and finance, CFO conferences, and so on and so forth. And that's been a great experience because you get exposed to the different levels of AI maturity or AI adoption in different aspects of the business world. So in certain instances, it's like, okay, we're behind, we need to catch up. That's one thing. It's like, wait, please do it with the right strategy, please. Listen, watch our free webinars if you have to, but there are models for getting started. But to get back to the speaking, our audiences go from sometimes 10 or 15 or 20 in the business school to 200 at a global business services conference to 2,000 at an e-commerce conference that's run by Takealot. So it's been quite a different experience.
Fantastic. Now, you're a seasoned speaker, and maybe your process at the moment is different than years ago. I don't know about you. I still get very nervous. I deal with it better now. Maybe it's a good thing. There's a number of techniques like breathing, etc., that I do. I have a policy that I never look at my slides on the day of the talk because I'll be too tempted to change it. Self-criticism, wanting super perfect, but maybe take us to what you've learned over the years and what is your process in preparing for a speaking event?
Yeah, mine's quite different. I have my standard pitch deck, and then we adapt it for the audience. So we'll have more use cases in marketing for a marketing conference or contact centers for a contact contact center conference, and so on and so forth. But on the day, that's when especially large audiences, the terror starts to creep in. And but I found it's useful to get to the conference a couple hours before, if there's speakers before us, hear what they have to say. But I always tinker on the day of the event, because I found if I don't look at the slides on the same day, I get lost. And sometimes, and we have different setups, and you've experienced it. Sometimes you have your slides that are right there in front of you. Or sometimes they're off in the distance, like now I have to put on my glasses to see that far. So it's important to actually understand exactly what I'm going to be saying over a 15 or 20 or 30-minute keynote.
Yeah, and also I've seen some of your talks. What I like is your slides are visually appealing and simple. I hate these slides, and I find it in a lot of tech conferences where there's so much to do on the slide. And I think especially people who are still learning to speak, they forget what they're going to say, and they want to put all their speaking notes on the slide. And I always say, remember, people don't really know what you are going to say on that slide. So if you mess it up or change the story, no one's going to know. But yeah, just maybe your preparation of the slides. I also use a lot of my decks over and over because it tells the story I want to tell, and I adapt it, like you said, Greg. But let's say you need to speak at a conference where you need to maybe redo the deck or make a new deck. What is that process? Is it like 20 slides for a 45-minute, or is it 2 or 3 and that's the storyline? And I think one of the things that's key and for our listeners is we all have our own styles. So learn from people like you, but also adopt your own style. If you need 20 slides and it will fit, use it. If you need 4, great. But yeah, if you start from scratch with maybe a new deep sea topic or something new, and what is the process you go through?
That's a great point on DeepSeek. I stay out of industry conversations about, Sam Altman gets fired from OpenAI or Satya Nadella from Microsoft, acqui-hires, Inflection AI and Mustafa Suleiman's business. It doesn't matter to my customers. It doesn't matter to me. If OpenAI disappears tomorrow, we'll move over to Claude or one of the other LLMs. We don't care, right? But to get back to the slide conversation, the only thing better than a 10-word slide is a 5-word slide. The only thing better than a 5-word slide is a 3-word slide, right? So if you have depth of knowledge, like you do in your domain and I do with AI leadership and strategy, opportunities and marketing, those are like the things. I can have a 3-letter slide and talk forever. But obviously the audience then needs some sort of reference, some visual reference of what you're talking about. So then you get into the in-between bill, right? That's where the visuals come in. So people observe, analyze or process visuals 60,000 times faster than words. So the words actually you don't need a lot of words. You need to actually come up with a very clever way to express your points. At one of the banks, and we're talking to advertising agencies, and I came up with a visual using OpenAI, using ChatGPT about, don't run alongside the AI, don't run away from the AI. Right. And I could not get GPT to actually produce the same slide. So I ended up with a slide that's contrary to my point, which is the AI, the robots are running that way, and the guy in the suit's running this way. And don't run away from it. Don't run away from this thing. Adopt it and do your best. So yeah, but fewer words and fewer slides, it's going to land more. But then the risk is then that people don't have a visual reference of what you're trying to say.
And I think we remember pictures more than words. Sometimes what I'll do when I do like a 3-hour lecture, I will still give a handout, which is the text. Maybe it's 100 pages of all the stuff they want to research it. But the actual talk is prominently pictures. But also the pictures help me remember what I wanted to say on that slide, because my head goes all over the place. And when I go to the next slide, I have no idea where I am in my talk. It's very embarrassing. But then the next reminds me. One of the pictures I remember most of some of your talks is you've got this beautiful, I think it's AI generated, this African woman standing on a hill, I think with a mobile phone, beautifully. And then you make a number of really good points, but it's such a visually appealing slide. It is. I think we sometimes forget the human behavioral science behind these things. I want simplicity on the screen. I want to focus on you. I want to say, wow, that's a beautiful picture. I'll never forget it. And I think that's I think we, especially when I started learning how to speak, is I overcomplicated my slides like crazy because I thought the audience might think I'm stupid. Be simple. And the other thing is, what do you do on the day when the projector doesn't work and you don't have slides? Can you still do your talk? And that takes time as well. Things like when you get to the venue, you mentioned you get there early. I do that too. It settles me down. I meet the sound team. I meet the conference organizers. I check the setup. Obviously, the miking up. What do you prefer? Sometimes I guess we get used to whether it's handheld or lapel, or I call it the Michael Jackson or whatever. Anything. If a conference organizer asks you, what do you prefer sound-wise? What do you typically say?
Yeah, I prefer to be hands-free. If that gives us the best sound result. That's the thing that goes around the ear, and you have your mobile mic. Those are more delicate than the others, so than a handheld mic. So if we have to switch over, we just switch over, no problem. And the sound guys at the conferences you and I have spoken at these various hotels and conference centers, they're excellent. They're very professional. They could be doing sound at Madison Square Garden in New York. They'd have a job like that. They're really, really solid. So yeah. The sound part's important. We did have an event that you were there in a different session, but when we spoke, we gave one of the keynotes around lunchtime. Actually a mini masterclass at the Kyalami racetrack. And the Kyalami racetrack basically is a 4-story high airport hangar with a tin roof. So the moment I started speaking, there's a loud boom, and of course you think something, but you can't say, "Oh shucks." You know, you have to say that in your head, like, what was that big loud boom? And then a hailstorm hits, and it was so loud I couldn't hear myself talk. And that was one of those. If you have a bit of experience, you can get through this. It's the same as the projector doesn't work. You don't have any reference to slides. I've had to have at least a slide on a phone, and then I could just scroll through the slides and talk to people, even though they can't see what I'm talking about. And that changes the way you have to communicate your point because they don't have a visual reference.
Exactly. And that can floor you. I mean, that disruption. In fact, I was at that session. I was sitting at the back. I think it was you and Francois.
Yes.
It was a heck of a hailstorm, and we struggled to hear you guys. Now, what do you do? Or your mic stops working. Or somebody stands up to go to the bathroom and they fall over the chair. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. So last night, I was emceeing a large technology event. Fairly small venue. Lovely. It's 20 floors high above Sandton skyline. But we had so many sound problems. So I took the mic, the handheld, the didn't work. And now I wanted to round everyone up, welcome everyone, etc. Nothing worked. So people look at me, and then I look at the sound team. And that really can get to you. In fact, it can ruin the rest of your presentation. But you also need to learn, I think, Greg, and I'm just going to say it as I think. You need a healthy sense of I don't give a shit. I'm going to do this talk, whether only the front row hears me. I can't re-engineer the sound. I've got a message to the listener. And only over time, or the one thing that really gets me is, especially if you say, listen, toward the end of my talk, I'll leave 15 minutes for Q&A, and you have somebody somewhere that constantly puts up their hand or interrupts you. And then you shouldn't be rude, but I'm so in the mood of telling them to shut the F up. So it's these things that floor you. I guess it's time and experience that helps you to flow with it,
Yeah, 100%. And the person that loves to hear the audience member that loves to hear their own voice, and they come out of some rural community and haven't been in an audience for 2 years. There's techniques for moving on. We can. No, I'm happy to answer that question after, but there's a lot of people waiting in the back of the room. Then you carry on with the Q&A. What was the example I was going to come up with at the same conference? At the conference, and it was just a thunderstorm, and I know most people can't hear me. They fixed the sound somewhat when Francois was halfway through his talk. But for me, I'm like, you know what? This isn't about me. This is about the audience. We want to give value to the audience. We want the audience to enjoy what we have to say. We want the audience to be able to take something back to their offices of value. So I knew it's not about me. It's about them. It's about the audience. And I just did my best to convey my message, but I knew that at the end of the talk, they're going to get something of value. We put up a QR code. And in this instance, they could download an AI maturity assessment with 18 questions, and gives them a nice little diagram of their AI maturity and what their strengths and weaknesses are in accordance to the answers to the questions. So it's like that. It's really not about us. It's about the audience. And when the hands go up, and the guy, I have a follow-up question, say, look, for the audience sake, was let's address some of these other things. We're short on time.
That's one of the most important points, I think, for aspiring speakers. Because in the beginning, I thought it's about me. I hope my zipper is closed. I hope I look neat. I hope I'm not sweating too much. But it's not me. And the moment I realized it's almost like a moral responsibility to share with the audience, that helped me to relax a bit more. Also, the other thing that helps is if you do get that hand or the disruption the whole time, is acknowledge it, respect it, and say, your question is important, but I think let's meet afterwards and we can really talk through it. And that's a kind of a nice way to settle it down. What about self-criticism? I don't know about you. I think most of us, I'm very critical of myself, so much so that I've had various times over the last few years where I decided I'm not going to speak in public again. And I had to get over myself. So what I will do is, if they record my talk, I will always look at it so that I can learn. Maybe my body language could have been better. I tend to look at one side of the stage a lot more than the other side. But whenever and also we hate hearing our own voices because we don't sound the way we sound in our head. But I'm a bit more relaxed. But I am sometimes so critical about myself that it debilitates me. In time, it gets better. Do you go through that process as well?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is I never watch myself because I can't. I don't like the way I look on camera. I don't like the sound of my own voice. Everybody loves the sound of their own name the most. It's a favorite sound in the world. And the sound that they hate the most is the sound of their own voice. I never watch I probably would become better if I did, but I just can't. So you had about 4 questions in there, Johan. What was some of the others? The ego. So, and the healthy dose of not giving a shit, right? Which you alluded to before. So we set our ego aside. We have a healthy ego, and then we just do our best. And we try to deliver something of value. Then it's not about us. It's about the generosity of serving the audience, because we generally don't. Well, that's beside the point. And then I do my best, and if it bombs, it bombs. I bombed once. You were there. And then 3 months later, I was at a conference. We're speaking in front of 250 people. We ended up at a gala at a table of 10. And the 2 ladies sitting next to us said, no, we were at that conference, and you were really good. No, you weren't there. Ursula was the MC of that one. It was at the Africa Chatbot Conference. And I said, oh gosh, you saw me bomb. I thought there'd be no consequences of bombing. And you were there. I'm so embarrassed. And they said, no, you were fantastic. But you talked about wanting to quit public speaking ever again. That night I'm driving home, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. It's just it's so much work, and I get so nervous, and really and there's no real good outcomes, whatever. And then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, oh, we have another one today. Now it's a human resources conference. And I'm like, okay, this will be the last one. And I went and then I smashed a 6 out of the park. Like I saw Wonders, which is right over here. In the cricket game the other day. So it happens, you just do your best, and it's important that we're not so hard on ourselves.
And I think you're going to bomb it every now and then, no matter how experienced you are. It's a bad day. Maybe your health is a little bit down, the flu or something. People go through divorces. They were diagnosed with cancer, and you're going to have to go and speak. And it's okay to bomb it. And it's an interesting point that you made, because I've also experienced this, Greg. So I've had talks where I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread, and no one commented or came to me afterwards. And I thought that was really good. But then I had talks where I thought, I think they're going to throw me with potatoes. And those talks are when people ping me on LinkedIn or come to me afterwards and say, you said something that really helps my career. And it's again that thing of getting over yourself. Before we conclude, we want to kind of circle to the academy and some of the work. We'll obviously put the link on the recording, inviting people to collaborate. Do you have a specific routine around rest, eating before or not, clothing that you wear? It might not be super relevant for everyone, but any specific things that works for you?
Waking up early and getting to the gym and doing a really hard workout helps a lot. So if you're speaking at 8, it's not so easy. But if you're speaking at 9, then you can do the school run and get that done. That's the thing that really helps, because it gets your energy up, gets your testosterone up, and it makes you more relaxed at the same time. So getting to the gym on the morning of a talk and doing something really hard, I find that's the most important thing. Probably another important thing is don't drink too much coffee.
Mm.
And I'm a self-proclaimed coffee addict. I love coffee. It's one of my four major food groups. But if you get too much, then you get too much energy, and you're not. I mean, the secret to presence and charisma is actually moving more slowly and talking more slowly, not moving quickly, and lots of energy kind of flowing through your body. So cutting out the caffeine is probably. I've only had a half a cup of coffee today. I should be on my third.
Okay. And the coffee, because I'm nervous, the coffee calms me. On stage, it doesn't serve me, to your point, because I'm a bit shaky and I'm nervous and I want to get through the talk. And that's an important point. It's people want a story and a conversation. You don't have to rush it. Talk through it slow, because people are also processing. You don't have to go through 55 points. But I find, for me, I hate eating before I speak. The problem is I'm quite hungry, but I find that if I eat, I'm lazy and I'm not sharp. And for me, rest is an incredibly important thing, and I'm not very good at that because it tires me out. But it's also about self-care and finding out what works for you. Maybe not have 5 killer meetings before you go to the conference. Maybe something like that. Greg.
And I think in terms of the delivery, optimal, according to Toastmasters, the optimal length of a talk is 17 and a half minutes. You're only going to get 3 points across. You're not going to get 20. You're not going to put. People try to just fire hose you with information. These very complicated slides with 500 words on the slides. Nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to comprehend it. Keep it simple. 3 points. Reinforce, and create context in terms of their use case or their environments in terms of your example. So I think it's important just really to keep it simple, even 17 and a half minutes, 3 points max.
And that helps with the relaxing a bit more. You're not there to deliver a comprehensive lecture and to also speak from the heart. People love it when they see the speaker as not the most perfect thing alive, because they can't identify with you. Laugh about your mistake. It's okay when you get a question to say, I'm not sure, I never thought about it, or to talk about where you've screwed things up in your career. People are so drawn to that. Just quickly on attire before we move on, I find like the shirts we have on today are perfect. I typically do either this blue shirt or a white shirt because you perspire. And if you wear a certain color, like a pastel kind of color, you can see the perspiration. It's a bit off-putting. Also, if you have to wear a jacket and try and look smart. And then I like just sneakers and a jean and a nice shirt and jacket. But what I do, like last night, it's the first time I spoke with this crowd, so I wore my suit and I took a tie with in case. So I always say that the rule is dress up, because you can always dress down a bit rather than the other way around. Attire-wise, it's also different for female speakers, but any tips or tricks there?
It's just about trying to look as thin as possible. But one thing I stopped doing is wearing white shirts. It's white shirts with my complexion, and if the light isn't right, especially on Zoom or audio conference, it makes things contrast too much. So I tried not to wear white when I'm going to be on camera or even live in a public talk.
Okay, cool. We've got about 2 minutes left. Just circle back to the Academy, Greg. What's exciting? What's coming up? How do people sign up? Again, the link will be on the recording. What will people get out of the community?
So the African Academy of AI is Africa's premier AI education and consulting firm. We have three practice areas. We have consulting, where we help people out with their strategy, where to get started, help them get on board their leadership are kind of resistant, or the broader employee base. And we have a very strong component of governance, risk management, and compliance. And then, so that's the consulting side. That we have training and education, and then implementations. We build things for clients. But on the training and education, that's the thing probably people care the most about. We run courses, open courses, 3-day master classes through business schools, including Gibbs and Henley, and some others. And then we can actually run bespoke programs in companies to help them upskill their employees, because the future of the workforce And one of the things that you do really well, and I really appreciate, is you begin all your talks with, I look at AI through the eyes of a father, not as a practitioner. And I think it's really super important to think about, okay, my daughter is going into college in September, university, and her job 4 years later doesn't exist today, or certainly doesn't exist in its current form. If you get people to empathize with that, it's like, oh gosh, I have an accounting team and I have a marketing team and I have a sales team. Their jobs are going to fundamentally change, or they're going to go to work for somebody else because we haven't adapted AI into our operations and strategy. So that's more or less what we do at AAAI.
Super, Greg. It's always a singular pleasure speaking with you. A lot of wisdom shared in this short time. I look forward to getting this out in the next few days. But all the best, my good friend. Thank you for your time, and thanks for the good work and the inspirational work that you're doing.